Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis will be honored tonight at the annual Grammys on the Hill event at the Hamilton in Washington, D.C. I spoke to the songwriting and producing duo about their prolific career from Rhythm Nation to On Bended Knee and everything in between. Jimmy Jam, hey, thanks so much for joining us on WTOP in Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Jason.
And I think we're having your partner in crime here, the dynamic duo, Terry Lewis, should be joining us here momentarily. If Terry, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Perfect timing. We've just finished introducing Jimmy Jam. We're talking because you guys are getting honored at the Grammys on the Hill event. It's an annual thing every year. Big deal. They do it down in the Hamilton Live, right near Capitol Hill. I guess let's start there. How big of an honor is it? Is it that of all the people, then they chose you guys? That's got to be a big deal.
Yeah, we thought it was probably a mistake, and we didn't know, what they were thinking. But we're honored. We're honored by it, and I've been a part of Grammy on the Hill for quite a few years, and know the great work that goes on. So and know the great honorees that have been there in the past. So it's a great honor to be a part of it.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who all has been honored. I think they did Zach Brown Band, Alicia Keys, Keith Urban. It's a good mix of folks, and it's always a great night. So are you guys going to be performing at all, or is it mostly sitting back and let other people give tributes, or what's the plan?
Well, I would say, I think the sports term is a game time decision. So I think I think it'll be a game time decision, and we'll just see the vibe of the night and see if we want to be a part of it. Well, I know we'll want to be a part of it either way, but we'll see. We'll see.
Either way, everyone's going to get to see you get up and, accept the award at the podium, etc. But yep, you got it. We'll have to wait and see if you're going to perform. Either way, there's usually a bunch of celebrity performers, your fellow musicians that come and perform. Do we know who else is going to be there yet?
It is literally a work in progress as we're doing it, but luckily we have a whole lot of musical friends over our 40 years here now of producing records and writing songs and that. So there's a nice group of people to choose from, and it's going to be a beautiful evening. I will say that.
Yeah, and in addition to the music every year, the whole reason, the Recording Academy, the Grammys on the Hill, the reason they do this and the reason it's called Grammys on the Hill is there's a big, lobbying Washington component for, where musicians come, they all descend upon Washington and try to, argue for music rights. Do you know, what specifically is sort of the latest push? Is it royalties or what's like the latest, craze of what you guys think needs to be done?
Well, I think as always, it's about the music community, and I think the typical thing that you always think about is the stars that as you mentioned, the Alicia Keys and the people who are the stars. But there's a whole infrastructure that happens in music of producers and engineers and songwriters and people that are behind the scenes that get affected adversely in the economic system of music. So royalties are important. Streaming royalties are particularly important as we move to that platform as a delivery system for music. So I think it's really important that we make sure we look at the whole infrastructure. We know over COVID, there's been the live music businesses has really suffered, but it's not only the people that you see on the marquee, but it's all of the technicians and sound people and lighting people and all the people that make their livelihood. So for us, it's just kind of trying to bring a light to all of those people who are kind of the unsung heroes that make it possible for us to do what we do. So I think that would be the emphasis.
Awesome. Yeah, I know every year there's politicians and dignitaries there. And I believe this year they're also, in addition to you two, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, they're also going to be honoring Congressman Ted Deutsch, a Democrat from Florida, and then Congressman Michael McCall, Republican from Texas, a little bipartisan legislation they co-sponsored, the American Music Fairness Act. So it's kind of cool to see people coming across the aisle to support something we all love, which is music. I mean, do you agree? Do you think music sort of brings everyone together, right?
Yeah, I think it's the ultimate uniter. As we've lived in the past couple of years now on Zoom screens because of COVID, I always look at it like a quilt. there's different colors, there's different ages, there's Democrats, there's Republicans, there's people that maybe don't even speak the same language, from around the world. But music is a universal language, and as soon as you put a song on, you watch everybody's heads all nod at the same time. So even if we have differences in politics or what in different things, music is the thing that brings us all together. So it's great to be a representative of that. And to me, music is it is bipartisan. It is it isn't a thing whether whatever your political beliefs are. It's the ultimate thing that communicates to people because it reaches right into your soul. And so that I think it's important, and I think it's a great theme. And Grammys is a great theme for really having dialogue to me and trying to get things done.
Well, absolutely. Well, whenever I have folks as prestigious and acclaimed as you guys on here, I always love to hear about your journey, because you're one of the most famous songwriting duos and record producer teams in the history of music. So, I mean, we bow down before your excellence. But I always love to hear how it all started. So, Terry, do you want to jump in here and do you just remind us how you guys met? Weren't you in high school? It was.
Actually, we were in junior high, and Jimmy and I were both in a program called Upward Bound. A lot of people are probably familiar with it, but we were in a part of Upward Bound called peer teaching. And in peer teaching, we were taught how to teach kids math, age maybe a year or two below us. And that was really fun. So we ended up at the University of Minnesota, and we met each other there. And when I met Jimmy, well, I first saw Jimmy, he was on the piano in the lunchroom, like swooning a bunch of girls. And I was like, oh man, that's a cool dude. I had to get to know him. So, and he says that he first saw me, I had a red, black, and green bass. And I was sitting on my bed in my dorm room playing. And he came through and saw me, and we kind of fell in love with each other at that point. So we continued from there. At the end of that summer year, we formed a little band, and we played like a little dance that we had. And we've been musical friends ever since.
What was it called?
The early band, we call ourselves Wars of Armageddon.
Epic. Doesn't get more epic than that. Holy crap.
That's probably what we sounded like.
Yeah. People thought the world was ending when they heard.
Oh yeah. It was dissonant, I'm sure.
So it was, just to clarify. So I mean, you grew up in Minneapolis area, right? But so you're saying this was like a summer program on the campus of University of Minnesota, and then you go back to high school and you're playing in this band in high school?
Actually, no, that was just for the summer.
Okay.
Because we went our separate ways after that. I formed a band with a crew of guys that were North Siders, where I lived on the North Side. And we were all like athletes. And we called that band Flight Time.
Gotcha. Which soon evolved into the world famous The Time, as in, Morris Day and The Time. And you got to tour with Prince, open up for him. Just memories of those days as The Time and Morris Day and Prince. And gosh, that's just that's history making era of music all on its own.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun, and some great musicians, some great athletes as well. And Jimmy went on to form several groups, but his main group was Mind and Matter, who we used to go up against sometimes in battle of the bands, and they would latash us a couple times and we would latash them a couple times, but we were always competitive and friendly. And whenever we would do anything musically in the studio, I'd always ask Jimmy to come over and to lend his skills to our records. And he's an awesome guy.
Now,
thank you, Terry Lewis. That's nice. Thank you.
Wow. Is that the first time you've ever complimented each other, or does it happen every day?
Well, the truth hurts. Some of those whoopings he gave us back in the early days, were very painful. So
no, it was always with admiration though. Like when Terry's band would, beat our band up, I would always look at Terry and just admire him. Like I was mad we were getting beat up, but I was admiring him. And finally, we decided, well, let's just team up together, and and that was, the rest is his history. And we're actually, when we met, it was actually 1973, so we're like a year away from our 50th anniversary of first meeting. Me on the swooning the girls allegedly, and Terry with the red, black, and green bass. So that's almost 50 years ago we've known each other.
Wow. So the perfect, yeah. So the Grammys on the Hill thing's the perfect timing. It's almost like a 50th anniversary celebration. I don't, they might not have even known that, but you guys, you're clocking it in your head for sure.
It's an exclusive for you, Jason. You can break the news.
Oh my gosh, everyone, yeah, yeah. Just like what was it, the Wars of Armageddon, or
Right, exactly.
Yes.
we're getting all kinds of gold in this interview. Hey, but I want to so like you mentioned, after your bands sort of battle back and forth, you decided to join together, etc., and the rest was history. But if you got a second, I'd love to go through some of the history. I mean, tell me about. I mean, gosh, we could talk about so much, honestly. But I would love to know about the Control album and Rhythm Nation 1814. I mean, that those dominated the charts in the 80s. But any cool insights or tidbits, memories of putting those albums together?
Well, Janet just had a documentary out about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, that was kind of enlightening about the Control era and the Rhythm Nation era. But I remember meeting Janet. Janet was a huge. You mentioned Morris Day and the Time, and Janet was a huge, Morris Day and the Time fan. So she came to our show. That was the first time we had met her. And later on, when we started working, or before we started working with her, I remember there was a meeting with her dad, and her dad just said to us, he said, "You guys are from Minneapolis," and we said, "Yeah," and he said, "Prince is from Minneapolis," and we said, "Yeah." He said, "Don't have my daughter sounding like Prince." That was like his advice. So it was like, okay, okay, sir, whatever. But then Janet, when she came to Minneapolis to actually do Control, it was great because it was kind of, it was her story of a young woman striking out on her own. And what we did was lyrically, um, we told that story. And when she first came to town, there was like 5 or 6 days that we didn't really go to the studio. We just kind of hung out and rode around and went to dinner and just hung out. And she said, "When are we going to start working?" And we said, "Oh, we started working." And then we showed her the lyrics, or the opening lyrics to what Control was. And she said, "Oh," she said, "this is what we've been talking about." And we said, "Yeah." She said, "So whatever we talk about, that's what we're going to write about?" It's like, "Yeah." And she said, "Oh, well, I want to write about this and I want to write about that." So what it did is it opened her up as an artist. It made her feel like she was a part of the creative process. And I think that was literally the key to really what unlocked the greatness in Janet, was that somebody asked her opinion on what she wanted to talk about. And we've kind of used that same philosophy throughout really all the artists that we work with over the years, is to find out what story they want to tell and then help them tell the story.
I'm just like a kid in a candy shop listening to all these stories, because these, I mean, you guys wrote and or produced a lot of times both some of these most iconic songs and beats. And like for instance, Rhythm Nation. How do you come up with the? I don't even know how to hum it, but it's like boom, 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 wow. Which one of you comes up with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah,
You know,
it's so funny.
There's like an ow sound.
That's funny. I'll tell you. So Rhythm Nation, we had the idea for Rhythm Nation. We knew kind of lyrically what we thought it should be. That it needed to be an anthem, and once again using music to bring the world together. Talking about getting rid of color lines and those types of things. So, um, but what happened was we were at a restaurant having dinner, and Sly and the Family Stone came on. Thank you, the song "Thank You," Sly and the Family Stone, and we kind of heard it in the background. But you kind of hear music in the background all the time at restaurants and stuff. So, but then when the change of the song happened, and the guitar line, which is kind of goes jing 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 jing, when that came on,
You did it better than me.
yeah, we were like, "Oh, wait," and literally we ran out the restaurant. I think we paid, and we ran out of the restaurant, went straight to the studio. We took the Sly and the Family Stone sample of that guitar, and we looped it, put a drum beat with it, and then I remember we played it for Janet, and I just remember a smile coming over on her face. And whenever Janet smiles when you play her something, that's always the greatest feeling, because you know that it's touching her. And she just said, "Is that Rhythm Nation?" And we said, "Yeah, we think this could be the track for Rhythm Nation." And then we wrote the song from there. So inspiration strikes in various ways, but that was one that was very memorable for us, and very appropriate because Sly and the Family Stone was one of our biggest and most favorite influences growing up. In the '70s for us. So to be able to kind of take one of his songs and then use it to create something else that was impactful is just one of the great things about music.
And it's just so cool that you're able to weave in, Sly and the Family Stone. I love when, and gosh, they were just featured in that awesome. I'm sure you guys saw the Questlove doc, right? That they were featured heavily in that. But Summer of Soul was gone. But yeah, anyway, I love, we're sidetracking, but I love how one era of music inspires another, which inspires another. I absolutely love it. Who else? You also did, at least from my childhood, Boys to Men. Tell me about writing On Bended Knee. That's an all-timer for me, guys.
Thank you.
Bended Knee was one of those ones that came about because I guess the guys were in their final stages of completion of their album. And they came to us and asked us, what our opinion was. And as we always do, we try to give some good opinions. And we said, well, you need a begging song. And they laughed at us. What do you mean by that? And then Jam started to play some chords, and we came up with the concept of On Bended Knee, and went on to complete that song, which is an amazing song. But the execution of the song by Boys to Men is what's so amazing. Those guys are so awesome. They are the best.
They really are. And it doesn't matter which of the 4 seasons of Loneliness. They're good in all 4 seasons, because you guys wrote that one too.
Very good. That's a good one.
Smell of her perfume. Oh yeah, we remember that. I mean, you've produced so many people, so we'd be here all day, but I guess let's do one more with someone else. How about Usher? You remind me for Usher. That topped the charts too, but tell me about working with Usher.
Well, I was going to say Terry has a great Usher story, but you remind me in particular, I will say, was L.A. Reid, LaFace Records. He said to us, I got this song that Usher needs to sing, but he's not singing it right. And so he put the pressure on, and he said, Usher says the only person he's going to sing this song with, to produce this song, is Terry Lewis. And so it was like, okay, cool. And so I remember they went to LA to do it, or to Los Angeles to do it. And I remember they worked for about a week trying to get Usher to not sing it like the way the demo was, but to sing it in the correct way, make it his own song, basically. And LA had said that the song is there's 2 ways it's going to go with the song. Either it's the first single or it's off the album. But no pressure. I mean, just get a great vocal. So Terry came up with a great vocal with Usher. And I remember when we sent it to L.A. Reid, then he said, yep, first single. And I remember the record went straight to #1 and, got his album off to a wonderful start. But Terry has an interesting story, if he wants to tell a little bit, about how Usher really reinvigorated him at a point where, sometimes as a creative person, you kind of lose the enthusiasm or the inspiration for what you do. And I think Usher really inspired Terry at one point.
Yeah, he absolutely did. I mean, I don't know. I think everybody's been there, but there's no worse feeling than wanting something more for someone than they want it for themselves. And I was at a point musically and production wise where I felt like a lot of the artists that we were working with were caught up on everything except for music itself. And, so I got a little disjointed. I didn't feel like I could have a flow with music anymore. So along comes this young kid, Usher, and he wants to work. He's like a sponge. He's asking questions. He's trying things. He never has an issue with anything he's asked to do. And he's always just coming up and flowing with new ideas. And it just really reinvigorated my whole concept of what music and production meant. And I really have to thank him for that, because I'm still flowing on that energy right now.
Now,
Yep.
what era are we talking? Was this the Confessions album, or when are you talking?
Oh, this is pre-confession.
8701.
Oh wow,
This was 8701. Yeah, before Confession.
before even. Wow. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and
We,
then yeah, you've
we
done them
did.
all.
So Jason, so I'll give you just a little trivia fact. The first time we worked with Usher was actually, I was thinking about this last night because I was watching, I always watch the basketball game. So we always watch Inside the NBA with, Shaq and everybody.
Oh, it's the
But,
best.
right, it's the best. But anyway, Shaq had a movie called Kazam
Oh
where
yes,
he,
we remember it.
where he played a genie.
Yes.
And the first time we worked with Usher, it was for that movie. We did a song called I think it was called I Think I'm in Love, is what the name of the song was.
Whoa.
And we did it for the soundtrack of that movie. And when Usher came to town, I remember, I don't think Terry worked with him that day. I think I did. But I remember saying to Terry, man, this kid is amazing. Because he was still really young. And I said, this kid is amazing. This Usher kid is really amazing. So then when we got the chance to then work with him again, and him and Terry just obviously hit it off so well when we came back with, You Remind Me, and that kind of started the journey, which then led into the Confessions album and a lot of things subsequent. And even on our album that we released, Usher has a song on it. So he's like a lifetime, long time inspirational friend to us now.
Wow. Wow. That's a cool story. Wow. Kazam, you're really bringing it back because that was what, like 96? And My Way was what, 97, I think.
Yeah,
So, yeah, it
yeah,
was right before all that really took off. You were on the ground floor of Usher.
absolutely.
Well, there's so many. I mean, there's so many people. We'd be here all day, but we won't keep it. You've been generous. But you did mention really quick before we go. You mentioned that you released your own, your own album. Your first. Is this your first one? Jam and Lewis Volume 1. That's the very first
Our
one.
debut, yes, our debut album, yes.
Wow. So many years, and it just came out, I guess, in the last year. So after all this time, sort of behind the scenes as these genius architects for all these artists, Mary J. Blige, Boyz II Men, everybody, you're finally stepping out and, and putting your own performances on the album. So what's that been like?
It's been great. And, the only difference really is that it's the difference between, I think my analogy was, we used to be like the doctors that would deliver the baby. Now we have to take the baby home with us and actually, feed it and change the diapers and all of that. So that's really the difference between being an artist, I guess, and being just the writers and producers. But we assembled all our family basically to do it. So when you talk about Usher and you talk about, Boys to Men and Morris Day and the Time and all of those acts, I mean, they're all part of our record. Mary J. Blige, and we just went to our friends that we really were inspired to write songs with and for, and then we made the songs that we wanted to hear. Kind of, if we went and picked up one of their records, what would be the song we would want to hear? Mariah Carey, we had a big hit with her from the record, and our first single was actually with Babyface, um, which was very cool because back in the day we were kind of thought of as rivals. So it was kind of cool to get together with him and actually do a song together with him. So that's the album's been a great journey, and we call the album Volume 1. It's called Jam and Lewis Volume 1, and we've already started on working on Volume 2 because we had so much fun doing Volume 1.
That's funny. That it's so funny. You said you were thought of as rivals with Babyface because we just spoke with Babyface. So that's funny. Yeah, I mean, you were burning up the charts pretty much I feel like almost every hit was one of you guys for a while. Well, that's cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, I didn't even know we'd get to go a half hour with these legends. I guess in closing, when it's all said and done, you're starting to get these life achievement kind of things like Grammys on the Hill now. But when it's all said and done and then history's written on Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, well, how would you want to be remembered against all the other famous songwriting teams in history? What would sort of be that, that first line of that obituary decades from now when it's all written? What do you hope it reads?
Wow, we're writing obituaries. Okay, so
well, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to be remembered as?
Well, the one thing I would say is, as long as it starts off with Grammy winning whatever, producers, writers, whatever that is. I do like the idea of that because I think the Grammys for us has meant more than just winning awards. It's actually been something we've got involved with in advocacy and all the things that the Grammys does. And when I was chairman of the Grammys back a long time ago, I always used to say the other 364 days a year, because people know us for one night, for Grammy night, which is wonderful. But year round, there's a lot of great things that the Grammys are doing. And so I always like the idea that we're going to be Grammy award winning, songwriters, producers, whatever we are. So that would be great to be to start off an obituary. But also, I think we want to. Our goal is we just want to leave music in a better place than we found it. I mean, music has taken us around the world. It's raised our families. It's everything. And so for us, if we can somehow leave music in a better place, whether that's mentoring young people, whether that's changing technology, whether it's speaking to Congress on behalf of songwriters, all of those things, I think that would be how we'd like to be remembered, and not the statistic of it. Like I'll tell you a real quick story. When we worked with when we were doing Scream with Michael and Janet together, Michael asked us. He said, "How do you guys want to be remembered?" And I said, "We want to be remembered as nice guys." And he said, "No, no, no, no. Like the most number one records or the biggest selling whatever." And I said, "No, Michael, those are statistics." I said, "I want to be remembered as a nice guy." And I remember about a year later, we had called Michael for not for a favor necessarily, but we wanted to take one of his songs and sample them. And everybody said, "Nobody's going to clear that." And so I called Michael, and he said to me, he said, "I know you want to talk to me about something, but can I tell you something?" "Yeah." He said, "Every time people ask me what it was like working with you guys, I just go, 'They're the nicest guys.'" And I said, "Michael, you get it. That's what it's about." And then of course, he gave us permission to use the sample and the whole thing. But I said to Michael, I said, "Here's the cool thing about it, Michael." I said, "When people ask me what it was like to work with you, I say, he's the nicest guy." And he said, "Oh, that's great. I'm glad you think that." So to me, those are the things. People don't remember necessarily the results, but they do remember how you make them feel. So if we can give people a good impression and they feel good, and when they think about us, they go, "Oh yeah, those guys were cool. They were nice guys," or whatever. That to me would be a nice way to be remembered.
Wow. Perfectly said. And you know what? Fellas, it comes across in this interview too. Yeah, you know what? When everyone asks me, how was that interview with them? I'll say they were the nicest guys. Awesome. Well, we can't wait to see you and see you get honored at the Grammys on the Hill. Every year, it's just a great advocacy event. Not to mention getting to hear some cool tunes from some of the best musicians around of our time. So, thank you so much. I can't believe they didn't give the award to the Wars of Armageddon, but
maybe the next one, right?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much again, everyone. It is the Grammys on the Hill. It's tonight at the Hamilton in D.C., a great annual event every year put on by the Grammys and the Recording Academy. This year's honorees, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, the legends themselves. Hey, thank you so much for taking the time and being such nice guys.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.